This is Module 2 working with Mono Game, and in Lesson 2 we're going to be looking at creating a sprite class, designing what a sprite is and what it does, and creating instances of that sprite. Before, we just look very briefly at the different elements of Mono Game, but we're going to see all of that in action now. Okay. So before we looked at what in module 1 we did how do we program, what should we be thinking about? We should be thinking about things as objects. In our game, it's going to have lots of different objects, and different things are going to have different objects. The reason why I've decided to do a sprite class on the top is because I know that my players and my enemies are going to have a lot of things in common, and straight off on the bat I want to try and save as much coding as possible. So let's think, how do I want to do this? Let's dive into the program and look at what we left off before. We have the Space Shooter project and we have the Game 1 class. We're going to add a new class to the project, and we're going to call this one, yeah, you guessed it, it's called Sprite. It's a class called Sprite. There we go, it's opened up and it's totally blank. It's actually included all of the using system stuff like that we need, but what I don't really need any of that. I could delete it. So look, yeah, why not? Let's just delete it. I'm going to add, excuse me, I'm going to add everything that I need from X and A. So to do that, all you type in is Microsoft, there it is there, dot xna dot framework. That gets the framework in. Then same again, using Microsoft dot xna dot framework. We're going to get the graphics in, and we're going to get the framework dot input. Get the input into there as well. Why not? Okay, that's that done. They are in. Okay. So we looked at the classes before when we said what does a class have and what does a class do. So what this sprite has is we're going to have to put the constructor together. Right. So I'm going to have to do this one step at a time, I think. Okay. A sprite will have a texture. This is going to contain our picture that we're going to hold for an enemy or a player or whatever. Type in texture 2D. So that is a class that's inside xna.framework.graphics, and this will contain different values and things to say that we're going to put a picture into here. Let's call this one texture. Okay, fine. Let's just be lazy. That'll do. Okay, so let's look at that in the constructor very quickly. I'd rather get something working and then we can add this later. Public sprite, yeah, because we're doing the constructor. And we'll leave it empty. We're going to put in texture 2D. Let's give this a name. Texture. That'll do. And I'll do this dot texture in here. So that'll be this dot texture equals texture. Okay. I don't know if I want to. Yes, I'll tell you what. Let's do that. Let's do that now. I'm going to open up Paint and get a very simple 50 by 50. Might be a bit too big a file. Properties 50 by 50. Yeah, that's nice and small. And I'm going to give myself, let's make a really, really quick spaceship, eh? Really, really quick. Right, so I've just saved that into the content folder of the project, but if I open up the content pipeline, it'll not actually be there yet, but that's okay. We're going to go to edit, add existing item. Here we can add a sprite. You can add this from anywhere else, but I'm just adding it into here because it's easy to do. It'll probably ask you to copy it into the directory. That's okay, say yes. Close that and ask you to save. Save, yes, saved. Done. Right. I'm going to talk through a couple of different things before I start playing around with classes. Should have really did this earlier, but I won't do it now anyway. In the Game 1 class, I'm just adding in that Texture 2D sprite. Just calling it T for now, I'm just being lazy. I'm going to add another one, a Vector 2. So, a Vector 2 is a value that contains two floats, X and Y. And we can use those to represent a position on a 2D game. Simple enough. If I press start on the project, which I imagine you might have already done this before in the last lesson, you could have done, it would have been worked fine, but when it opens up you're going to get a blank blue screen. That's normal, that's okay, it's going to load, it's still loading. It might take a while the first time you run it. Once it's done, it boots up and you end up with something that looks a little bit like this, well exactly like this, a totally blank blue screen. So this represents the game window. Done. Right. So, how do we get things to draw into the game? I've got this initialize method, which I'm not really going to do anything with it. Yeah, I'm not going to do anything with that. What have I just done? Why? There we go. In my load content is where I'm going to load in a sprite. So, T, which is the name of the texture that I created up there, equals content.load. What type of content are you loading in? What type of content? It is a texture 2D content, and then next is the file name. So I called mine player texture, but you don't have to add the .jpeg at the end, just the file name. Oh no, I didn't. I called it play sprite. It's a good thing that I checked. Player sprite. Okay, that's in there. Done. T equals content.load texture 2D play sprite. Done. Loaded in. Next, unload content. Don't need to do anything in there. Nothing you can do in update this one. Now, to do your drawing code, you need three things. You need spritebatch.begin, which is a method that initializes the sprite batch to say that we're about to make things appear on the screen, and tell it when to stop drawing. Just say that, right, we're finished drawing them, now you can play around. Now they're on the screen, you can move around the positions. And then spritebatch.draw, and in spritebatch.draw you can pass in lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of different things. I'm going to start off somewhere easy, and we're just going to put in a texture, which is T, the position, which is going to be pos, that variable that we created at the top here, that one there, and next one, just use color.white, yeah, a static variable called white. That'll do. Nice and simple. Now if I run that game, it's going to break because pos is currently empty. So I need to put some values in there, and I'm going to put them in here. So pos equals new Vector 2. You can use this to load content in as well. So it says Vector 2 needs a float for X and a float for Y. If I type in one, I tell you what, let's do 0, 0. Start off simple. 0, 0, close bracket, semicolon, new line. That should draw it in the top left hand corner. Load it up, and there it is. There's my sprite into the game. If I change these coordinates to 200 by 200 That's 200 pixels to the right and 200 pixels down. And there we go, it's moved. Okay. So the screen isn't that big. Sorry about that, where was I? Right, I've just got myself a little bit lost. Let's pick up where I was. So, starting the project, we should have a sprite appearing at 200 by 200. There's my sprite, so that's no bother. So, the sprite class that I'm creating, the idea is that I am accessing all of, or I'm handling all of my sprite characters inside here. Yeah, so let's quickly talk about this sprite batch.draw thing, see what's going on there. Sprite batch is already an object I said last lesson that here it is here, and I'm accessing that to use to make it draw. But in my sprite class, I haven't got any of that. So what you'll see is how I can do lots of different things, or do the same things I would do in the game class, but instead handle it in in a different class. I'm trying to keep things nice and neat. So my sprite class, what have I got so far? I have created a sprite that has a texture, and I'm going to pass that texture in. I also know that the sprite is going to need a position, and for this example I'm going to use a vector2 for the position. I'm going to call it position. I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to create add here vector2 position, and then underneath here this dot position equals position. In one of my earlier lessons in module 1, I did discuss why we needed to use this dot position equals position, or just change the name of that value. Right, so that's my constructor setup, and I'm going to do some methods and stuff. Let's see how it looks in the game class. If I add sprite equals new sprite, it's asking for a texture and a position to go into there. So that is good so far. Right. Okay. Let's put some methods in here. So, I need a method to draw that sprite, whatever sprite I put in, into the project. Let's put that in now. Let's add in public void. Now I'm going to call it draw, because I said I'll do draw sprite. That's a good enough name. Now inside here I want to add sprite batch dot draw, but I can't do sprite batch like that because sprite batch doesn't exist in the current context. I know that I want to use sprite batch in this class, and I could add sprite batch up there, no bother. But I only want to use sprite batch inside this method, so I'll just add it in here, sprite batch, and let's just do SB for short. Let's change that from SB to SB.draw, and there we go. We've got our usual things. We can point to them. We're going to draw the three things on it. So let's put in texture, which is reading this fella up here, and put a rectangle in. We've got to put a source rectangle, but we're just going to use that vector2 called position, and then lastly color.white. Right, so very quickly, color, what's happening here with color is color.white. White is all colors. If I did color.red, it would tint it red as if it was like being damaged. Right, so I've done, let's create that sprite in again. So sprite s equals, oh no, we'll just leave it like that, sprite s. In my load content, I'm going to load in what that sprite is going to be. S equals new sprite. So yes, if you're off on the one that is in the load content, and I need to put in a texture and a position. Okay. Something else. I think I'd rather do this a slightly different way. I think it's going to be a lot easier. I can't do null. It's going to break if I did that. If you're following along and typing along, don't type this in just yet. I just want to demonstrate if I did here sprite, or that S, which is the name of the sprite, up here, this thing, which I'm done in load content. There it is there. If I do s.draw sprite, it runs that method. It's going to error because it needs a sprite. It needs something inside there. It's asking for a sprite batch object, but I've got one, so I'll just type in sprite batch, not sprite, sprite batch, not the class, the object, and that would run fine, apart from it's missing a texture. And one always do that's when you get the texture into there. So we'll do things slightly differently. To get a texture in before, we just typed in the name. So we did content.load texture 2D, and then we typed in a string for the name of the file. That's what we did. So why don't we just pass in the string rather than an actual file? It might be easier to handle, but to do that we need to have a new method to handle all of our load content. So in between there, we're going to do public void load sprite content, open close brackets, put it in a body, and that'll do. And inside there, we'll put in texture equals content. There is no content.load. So where is content? I'm back in the game class, and I'm going to just type in the word content and see what it belongs to. It belongs to the content manager class under Microsoft.xna.framework.content. Let's try something. I want to get that .content out in the project. And I want to reference the content that belongs in the game class. So, just like I did with Sprite Batch, I'm going to add Content Manager, which isn't there. So, do I need to do content? No, obviously I can't do content because that's what I was just doing. Let's add using Microsoft.xna.framework.content. Can I do that? Does it like that? Yes, it does. It likes that. Okay. .content, and then I can do content manager. Content. Now I can use content.load. What type is it? It is a texture 2D. Right. Simple enough. In here, I'm going to add a string. So for every different sprite I create, it's going to have a different sprite name. So I want to add that to the constructor as well. I'm going to remove this from the constructor because now it's going to be filled in with whatever happens in load sprite content. Get rid of that line because that's a waste, and instead add a string called file name. Put a comma there, and we'll do a string file name. We need to get a string up here as well. File name. We'll do file name equals file name. So whatever I type into here will go here, into here, and into here, and then be read in here. Okay, let's look at the game class and see what's going on with my sprite object here. S. Not got anything in at the minute, but let's just run S equals new sprite. Open brackets. It's asking for a file name now rather than texture 2D. So that seems to have worked. The file name is sprite. No, it was play sprite, wasn't it? Let's double check that. Yep, play sprite. Comma and position. Boom. What should we use? Let's do new vector 2 100 by 100. And this set the position will only happen the once because this load content method only happens once. So really it's more closer to a start position. Right, so that's loaded in now. With S, I'm in the load content method. I want to run the load content that I created, which is load sprite content. In those brackets, it's asking for a content manager. Let's use content, which is this fella up here in the constructor. We're going to use that semicolon at the end. And that should have loaded that into there. That's fine. Next, we can just do s.draw sprite, open brackets, put in sprite batch, close the brackets, run a semicolon, press start, and here presto, that should be, yeah, excellent. Right, so we're handling things like that now. What we've done then is we've managed to create a sprite and handle it all in a class. Why would we do that? Well, what if I wanted two sprites? Sprite, enemy. So let's create an enemy into here. And the enemy do exactly the same. Enemy equals new sprite. And again, let's draw another one. Let's save that. Let's call this one enemy sprite. Very quickly, because I don't want to go on much longer. Let's add them to the content. Edit, add existing item called enemy sprite. Save that. Close that off. Yes, I do want to see the project saved. Type in here enemy sprite. So that is the file name because that's what it asked for, and then the position. Let's put him somewhere else. X is the horizontal line, so we'll put him further to the right. 100 done. Semicolon. Then s.load sprite content. Content. Then down here, let's do enemy dot draw sprite batch done. Yes, I did use s.load sprite content. Well spotted. I didn't want to do enemy dot. So creating the enemy, loading the content of the enemy in, drawing the enemy onto the screen, hit start, and with any luck, yes, they are both on the screen. Mint. So I've initialized two different versions of the same sprite. The sprite class is designed, and we will add more to this as the project goes on. For now, I'm going to end it there. I'm going to delete these two sprite objects and delete all of the other stuff that we've done, because now we're going to create the player class next session, which is going to have an instance of that in there. Okay, right, saved, done.